You're listening to Life Check Yourself with life coach, transformational leader, and dating and relationship badass, Marni Batista. Every week, you'll get the raw truth from top experts and real people on the important life and love issues you want to know about. So if you're ready to life check yourself in your relationships, your career, and the areas of your life that matter most to you, and you're not afraid to be called out on your stuff, then you're ready for what's next.
Life Check Yourself with Amber Grubenmann. How sex impacts the how to go from dating to exclusive formula. Ladies, I realized that I was down to my last pair of thong underwear today, and I felt pretty damn sexy. And then I thought, this is perfect. I'm talking to Amber Grubenmann about sex. And if you don't know who Amber is, she is the creator of the highly rated women's dating and confidence podcast. And she helps women go from dating to exclusive through the work that she does with coaching. And we both got on the same page immediately. She came in and she was like, "I'm so excited. Let's talk about sex." So yeah, are you a person who like saves the thong underwear for a special day for you, Amber? Or is that just like another day in the office?
It's just another day in the office. I don't understand full underwear, like maybe for sleeping, but they're so uncomfortable to me. I feel like thongs are much more comfortable.
That's so funny. I'm sort of the other way. Although it depends on the material. You know,
yeah,
like
for me, it's just any material.
Any material. Okay. Well, maybe I need to buy better thongs. So we'll talk about that later. But let's kind of get right to it. So when you think about the stories that women tell themselves, you know, about sex, you know, because right from the get-go, when I'm sort of working with people and they're the listeners, I realize they have like the world according to, right? So let's say your name is Jane. It's like the world according to Jane around dating and relationship. There's definitely a chapter on sex, and it may completely be mythology, or it might be factual, or a hybrid. So what do you think some of the stories, what's that chapter about for most people who are unsuccessfully dating right now?
Yeah, so I actually wrote down a list of the most common things that I hear from the women that I work with around sex. And it's all about our mindset and our thoughts that we have around this step that we take with somebody. So some of the most common ones were, if he has sex with me, it means he likes me.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I need to show him how good it is. So I need to impress him with it. If he doesn't get it from me, he's going to get it from someone else or somewhere else.
Yeah.
And so we feel this sense of competition, and we can kind of rush into it for that reason. I need to see if we are sexually compatible. So that's a reason to have sex early, to kind of rush it at times, is feeling like you need to judge the compatibility you have with this person. If I don't have sex with him, he will lose interest, or I'm disappointing him. He will think there's no chemistry if we don't have sex on the second or third date. And also, I wasn't sure how many men listen to the podcast, but one that I've heard from men is that she will think that I'm not a man if I don't just go for it. I've heard that from multiple men. It's like this pressure that they have to initiate it early because otherwise they're not masculine.
I love these. You know what other one I have heard a lot is, if he takes me out to a, let's say, nice dinner, to a show, to like something of high dollar value, then I owe him some sort of sexual payback. Have you heard that one ever?
Right. Yes. And I'm so lucky that I had my dad, because he taught me very early on. He was like, Amber, if a guy ever expects something from you in any regard, just because he paid for something, that's not a good guy, and that's not a guy that you want to date.
Yeah, run for the hills. Lace up your
yes,
your Nikes. Or you know what? Have you heard of these Golden Goose shoes?
No, but they sound fancy.
Okay, they are fancy and they're ridiculously expensive, but I just feel, knowing what I know about you and thongs, just check that out. And I feel like you would be like putting on your golden gooses and running from the hills, because you're a woman of high value when you have a healthy mindset around sex.
Yeah. And also, I just love that that's essentially the only thing you know about me at this point. We
I
have
know.
no lead up to this. So
I know. It's totally. I did not check out your Instagram or follow you on TikTok or anything. So I'm just picking up
how
your vibe.
dare you?
I know. Like, what do we do these days? So okay. So I love these. I feel like, and I like this whole analogy of the world according to. So it's just kind of funny. So if someone thinks these things about sex and then they just casually are like, I'm going to try online dating. They bring all of that with them. So how do some of these negative stories impact your ability to be successful? What happens? What do you notice?
Yeah. So the number one thing that this leads to is rushing it, and not just rushing it from the standpoint of like, you should wait 10 dates or like you need to hold out so that he values and respects you more, but rushing it really for you and not setting the container that you need in the connection in order to feel safe and comfortable being more vulnerable with somebody, connecting with somebody on a deeper level. So one of the things that I share with my women who want to go from dating to exclusive, if that's your goal, then it is super helpful in the dating process to introduce sex once you are exclusive. And all that means is that you don't have sex until you feel confident and comfortable in knowing that we are the only two people in this connection. Right?
Yeah.
Because if you don't have that conversation and you're rushing it and you're doing it before you're comfortable or ready or really like know them or feel secure with them, then you have sex. There may be an increased vulnerability. You're kind of wondering in the back of your mind, are they sleeping with other people? Are they still open to other connections? Even if they're not sleeping with other people, when you like somebody and you're being vulnerable with them, it can be really uncomfortable to have that openness of the connection at that point still. So there's that aspect of things in terms of what you're comfortable with. And then there's also the aspect of the emotional connection that we have with somebody. So the sexual connection and the attraction is usually more like an on and off switch, meaning it's there or it's not there from date one. Not necessarily that it's like 100% there or like
Right.
all gas, no brakes, but it's there from the beginning. The emotional connection takes some more time. It takes more investment and experiences together and conversation and time to develop. So sometimes when we act on the physical side of things right from the beginning within the first date or two or just before we're exclusive, it's kind of like a tabletop that has only one leg.
Yeah.
Right.
I love
like
that.
the sexual connection is there, but the emotional connection wasn't built. So it kind of topples over really easily. And the emotional connection feels less secure for that reason. So we just want to keep both of those things in mind. And really, like, one thing that I think is important is for people to not come from the mindset of waiting a certain number of dates. It's about the container that you specifically need to feel confident and comfortable experiencing your sexuality with this person.
I love this. So my whole jam is tools, not rules, because I think there can be no rules around this because every human is different, right? And the context is so different. And I love that this philosophy you have requires like personal responsibility and also introspection. I think so many ladies are like, I want a number. Like, I want to follow, they want so bad there to be rules because they think the rules will like protect them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And there are things we can do in dating that increase the probability of a certain type of relationship. And there are things that we can do that decrease the probability, but there is no rule. It's kind of like it can rain in the desert, but it might be less likely to rain there. Or you can go to Portland and it's very likely to rain there. So it doesn't mean if you go to the desert, you'll never get rained on. But if you are looking for rain, you should probably live in Portland. Right. So
I love that.
One thing with the types of relationships that we have with people is if you're looking to create an exclusive, meaningful, long-term connection, then you want to do the opposite of treating that relationship casually.
Yeah.
Right? So casual sex has it right in the name. Like the marketing is super clear for what we are intending and creating with that behavior. And it's not about, are you a good or bad person or worthy or high value or any of that? It's just about, what am I creating in this connection by treating it casually versus creating more meaning around all parts of the connection, including the sexuality that you share with somebody.
And I think this is really an amazing point, Amber, because I think that people hook up or have casual sex and they're kind of bullshitting themselves because they don't want to admit that they care, that they really like the person, that they're invested, because that feels so vulnerable. So it's like this big charade, to be like, it was fine. I mean, I didn't really like him that much anyway, or I figured that might happen, but I was horny, and so why do you think people or women hide in that casual is okay and are afraid to really claim like what you say, I really want to have an exclusive relationship, I want monogamy or I want partnership or marriage or whatever it is?
Yeah, I think first of all, you're so right that it's less vulnerable, and it's easy to kind of fool ourselves into thinking that we're happy with less when we're not. And usually when we do that, it's because we don't actually really believe we can have more.
Yeah.
When we think about the quality of relationship that we want and the quality of connection that we want with somebody, and we secretly feel that we're not worthy or capable of creating that, or even if it's not about us, if we just think it doesn't exist out there, this is all that men want, then it's easier to just say okay, I'm just going to try to be happy with less than. I'm going to try to be happy with casual, and that's not really what I'm looking for. So I think it's really important to cultivate beliefs around yourself and around men that support you being capable of having a relationship, starting with knowing that men really want relationships.
Yeah.
And relationships are a human need, not a female need. And also, one thing that's really important is exclusivity is a baby step. Sometimes exclusivity feels like, gosh, that's so far away. If I can't have sex until I'm exclusive, right, I'll never have sex. But actually, it's just about meeting somebody that you have the potential with, and then having a very small conversation with them about just exploring this for now. And then that also means you get to explore the sexual part as you continue to see, is this the right person to really build a relationship with? So
I love
it really
that.
starts with your belief in yourself. And then also the courage to take that little baby step of having that conversation with somebody.
Yeah. So I think this is freaking if you're at a stoplight, write this down, what Amber just said. because I think people in their brain, you're talking a lot about mindset, which I love it, is that being exclusive doesn't mean you're marrying this person, that they're your person. It's literally the step in the journey where you're just wanting to focus on exploring this person. And I think that is a really important thing, because in the lies we tell ourselves about dating, we're afraid to even have the exclusivity conversation because well, he seems like he's with me all the time, or, I don't know. He said he's really into me. This is my favorite one. My daughter, I have daughters in their mid-20s. And so they tell me so many fun, fascinating facts, as well as my clients. And this is one that I hear from people, whether they're 25 or 65, which is, well, oh my God, we had the most amazing date. He said to me, you're amazing. I'm absolutely taking my profile down. You're amazing. Why? I'm done. I'm done. Mic drop. You're amazing. Right. And then never having the conversation. Well, I mean, he said that on our third date. I just assumed, right? Why do people need to have the damn conversation, Amber?
Okay, so in a perfect world, they wouldn't, but
right.
We live in the real world,
right?
And I have had so many people call into me and tell me these kinds of situations where They have been dating somebody for 2 to 3 months. They're sleeping together. They see each other 3 times a week. He has introduced her to his friends. They have emotional intimacy. They are basically friends. They love hanging out with each other. They go on dates. And then at the 3-month mark, she like mentions something about a relationship, and then comes out the thoughts from him about not being ready for one. Right. So then he says something like, well, actually, I just don't know if I'm like in that place to really give that or be ready for that. And then, of course, she is completely baffled and confused. And it's so important to clarify those things early on so that we're not ending up in that spot 3 months down the road. Now, obviously, that guy has responsibility to share. The right thing for him to do would have been to clarify his intentions earlier on. And I think that's also uncomfortable for the other person to do as well. So we have 2 people avoiding clarifying their intentions. And then you end up in a situation like that months, even just weeks down the road, where you gave more than you would be comfortable giving if you had known that the container was not actually set for that relationship.
Yeah. And I just love that. And I think this happens, like I said, I think it happens whether it's you're dating 25 or like 65-year-olds. And
Definitely.
When we go back to the sex thing, like, I think it's really important too, because I always say like someone has to show you who they are consistently over time. So if you are in the midst of what I call the most amazing guy syndrome, like, oh my God, I met the most amazing guy. And he's like calling you and texting you and you're going on these amazing dates. And you're like, well, of course I'm sleeping with him because this is amazing. But you haven't clarified, right? Or you don't feel like it's monogamous or whatever, feels like you're emotionally protected, right? Then we can also have a really big letdown when that guy can't sustain that, or he's the kind of guy who just likes the chase, but then is also dating 4 other people in the funnel, right?
Right. And, as you were saying that, you said emotionally protected. And I just had this like idea come up in my mind where in sex, you use physical protection like a condom. And in your emotions, you use the emotional protection of an exclusive relationship. So it's kind of like an emotional condom.
I love it. Your heart needs a condom, people. Hopefully not ribbed. Okay, so let's talk about this. First of all, this is, people are going to listen to this like 20 times over because they're writing shit down. Okay, so let's talk about one of the myths you said in the limiting beliefs, like the need to prove to people that we're sexy. Okay, so let's say you're in that range from 25 to 65 and you don't feel sexy, or you don't know what sexy is, or you think sexy is a Kardashian, right? Or you think sexy is Brad Pitt. And so you want a guy that's Brad Pitt, right? Like, what do we tell our listeners around like feeling sexy, proving that we're sexy? Why do we think we have to be sexy and like be amazing in bed? Like, what's that about?
Yeah. So first of all, I do think there's validity to that. Everybody wants to feel sexy.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's not just the external expectations. It can also just be about our relationship to our sexuality and with that person in particular. So first of all, make sure that you actually feel attracted to the people that you're connecting with. Sometimes we can feel like we have to force things because we're supposed to be attracted to the nice guy and maybe we're just not, but we think we should. So we're going with it anyway. So don't beat yourself up for where you're at, but actually take some time to ask yourself, what is preventing me from feeling fully in touch with my sexuality, with this person and with myself? So the first things will be internal, like having a self-pleasure practice and actually just getting comfortable with your sexuality with yourself and learning what you like and learning also mentally what is turning you on. So solo practice before you get into duo practice.
Right.
And then also taking some time to think about what are the factors in an environment and with another person that allow me to express myself more or less. So, for example, maybe you do need like a more clean and comfortable environment with like candlelight. Like that might be one of your things that just allows your nervous system to relax and feel comfortable and less distracted, and therefore experience more pleasure and sexuality with that person. Or you can have specific offs like breaks. For example, maybe you just feel more confident and comfortable when you've had a shower in the last 4 hours, and there's nothing wrong with that. So just kind of looking at what are those things for me that enhance the pleasure or make it more difficult to access pleasure. And one really great book for that is Come As You Are. I forget her last name, but I think the author's name is Dr. Emily. And so she talks about those ons and offs, the gas and the brake. And so a lot of people think sexuality is just all about gas. Like, okay, like we're going to do this thing from Cosmo and like naked bodies and just like everything about turning you on. But we don't take a lot of time to really learn what also breaks that sexuality for us and turns us off when we're in connection with somebody, that prevents us from accessing our sexuality.
I love that. And I think also what is embedded in that, which I think is really important, is that inner sexiness is not conditional on whether or not you wear a thong, how old you are, what size body you have, curves, no curves, all of those things. And that it's something that I hear you saying, like, that is it's within all of us if we sort of like intentionally discover our sexiness.
Yeah. And it looks so different for all of us. So don't make yourself wrong for for example, my best friend, she is feminine, but she prefers more masculine clothing. And the other day she did wear a dress, and I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm so shocked because she hates dresses. And she says she feels just like so unattractive wearing a dress, and that she feels butch, which is so bizarre because she's like skinny. But when she wears a dress that should be like a typical feminine, flowy, sexy, curvy thing, she feels more masculine. So versus for me, all I wear is dresses. I love dresses. I feel so feminine and sexy in them. And that's just the way that I feel in those things. So not making yourself wrong just because your sexuality and what makes you feel feminine and sexy looks different than what it feels like for somebody else.
I love this. Okay, so let's transition to why we believe that men have these expectations around sex. What would your dad say?
Okay, actually, I don't talk that much about sex with my dad, so I'm not sure that was like one of our only conversations about that. But what I would say is, first of all, most women have probably had some sort of experience where they did feel pressured, or
of course.
Maybe we did have sex with somebody and then our worst nightmare happened and they ghosted us, or they lost interest, or things just fizzled out. So we can kind of learn like, oh, maybe I wasn't good enough, or I should have done it earlier, or I did it wrong. And so I think these experiences kind of weigh on us.
Yeah.
But I think it is so important to realize that sex will never create safety in a connection. It will never secure or move forward a connection. So a lot of times we think we think the person has that expectation of us, and we think we'll secure the connection by having sex with them, but that's never the case. If somebody didn't connect with you after you had sex, it wasn't going to change if it was like better sex.
Right.
Like that wasn't the connection for you.
And if it was, you don't want that guy.
Totally.
Right? Like, it's 11 o'clock. Let me text Nadine. She's like, she gives me the best blowjobs ever. No, you don't want that guy.
Exactly. So it's really important to there's the expectations from other people, but the first thing that you want to address is your thoughts, right? Like, what do I believe in? What do I feel comfortable with? And even if that is his actual expectation, so what? That's not what I'm comfortable with.
Right.
Right. So it's not about what he expects of me. It's about what I feel comfortable with and the kind of quality of relationship I'm trying to create. And I know how to create that. I know I'm not going to create that by doing things I'm not comfortable with and treating the relationship super casually. So I trust myself over somebody else's expectations or opinions, especially if there's somebody I just met one day ago.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was going to say, it goes right back to that. Like, if you don't take your relationship, your dating, your sexuality casual, and you make it mean something to you, then it makes perfect sense that you can communicate that without shame or guilt or discomfort to the other person, because you're just basically saying like, oh, I like red cars. Like I only drive red cars. Mm-hmm. And he can be like, oh shit. Okay. Well then, because the thing too is, I found this to be true in all of this experience I've had over the last decade plus, is like, there's always that guy that he will always be able to find the woman who will say yes. Like, don't worry about him.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. And so that's the fear that we have, is like, he's just going to go somewhere else then. Right. But if you want to also think about, what is the connection built off of?
Yes. Yeah.
Because if it's built off of having sex right now, if that's the main factor in whether or not we are connected, then that doesn't actually make me feel secure in the connection, because it's not about what we have together. It's kind of like, let's say this person always wants to hang out because I always have a cheeseburger for him to eat. That's not something unique to me. So therefore, I won't feel that the connection is based on something that is not about us. He may just get that somewhere else, but then that's not really a connection I'm losing. It's just a person who was using me for my cheeseburgers.
Exactly.
So you want to
Amen.
So you want to make sure that the connection is actually based off of something that's unique between the two of you, which is your emotional connection and the jokes that you share and the conversations you have. And then also interwoven into that is the unique physical chemistry that you have, but not just that. And we're only giving just that a chance to grow if we're approaching it in a super casual and sped up way and doing things because even before we're comfortable.
And don't you think that for the right guy, like the guy who's looking for a connection that's not casual, he will be so okay when you say like, I like red cars. He's going to be cool. I'm looking for someone who does red cars. Like, I don't even really want to rush it either.
Right. And you don't have to give people an expectation of when you're going to have sex with them. So you don't have to tell a guy, no, I'm waiting till we're exclusive. All you have to say is, let's slow down, or I'm not ready yet. You don't ever have to explain it or give him a good PowerPoint reason for the 3 reasons.
Let me show you the deck. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So don't feel like you have to explain yourself, or don't feel like you need to get him on board or convince him or get him to agree with you. It's just about what you're ready for, and you don't have to explain it to him in that way.
I love it. I always say to ladies, you could say, want to know a secret about me? And he'll be like, yeah, the slower I go, the faster I get there. Mm-hmm. It's like, I'm looking for an emotional connection. And when the sex is off the table and I can feel like really seen, right? And that this person really wants to make an emotional connection, then, ultimately, I'll take off my heart condom.
Yes.
Because when we feel like we can create emotional safety from ourselves by having these conversations, asking for what we want, then ultimately, right, then we can create a deeper connection. And the part of us that maybe didn't make those decisions, that got hurt before, can sort of start to relax because we're advocating for ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Right, exactly. So it's definitely a green flag to look for in a guy in terms of how he responds to you saying like, hey, I want to slow things down. Is if he's like, oh my God, eye rolls, then that's a major red flag. And that's not somebody that you would want to date.
No, you don't. You can be like, bye.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Wouldn't it be funny if we had, if and I'm sure someone wanted to create this, but they haven't, that I know of, is like the Yelp reviews, like of dating. Like I told him I wanted to slow down.
Yes, I have totally thought about that. And apparently there's a Black Mirror episode about that kind of thing, like people rating each other. And apparently it doesn't end well. So
yeah, we don't want to do that. Yeah, we don't want to do that. But we need to
do a few iterations before we launch that.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. So overall, what do you think our listeners' mindset should be around sex? Like, if you were going to say like, these are the guidelines to go from dating to exclusive around sex, what do you preach?
Yeah. So the main, most simple guideline I give is wait until you're exclusive, which just means I had a conversation with this person and the conversation established that we like each other. We just want to date each other and explore this further. So that tends to make things a lot less complicated on so many levels. And then also just repeating that if you want a meaningful relationship, treat it meaningfully and not casually in every regard. So one metaphor I like to give for this as well is like, imagine if I came into your office and I gave you a piece of paper with a drawing on it and I was like, check it out, I made this. You'd be like, cool. And then like in 3 days, it would probably like land somewhere jumbled up in the mess or in the garbage because I gave it to you very casually.
Right.
But if I gave you a golden envelope with an invitation to my art gala,
right,
and then you came to the art gala and the dress code was black and white tie, and there was that very same picture hanging up on a wall behind a velvet rope, your experience of the picture would be different. You would value it differently than me just being like, whatever, just this doesn't really matter. Here you go. Check it out. Right. So the point of that is sex is that piece of paper. It's not good or bad. It's neutral. It actually has no meaning in the sense it's like, it's just what it is. But in our relationships, we create context around sex. And therefore, our experience of sex depends on the context we choose to create. So having that exclusivity around the sex creates a different context where it means more to both of you and there's more security around it. And therefore, it's more in line with creating a meaningful relationship.
I love this. I saw this thing about this musician, and I cannot remember his name, but he is like a violinist performing at Lincoln Center. And apparently he did this experiment and he went to the subway station in New York and he played and he made $30. And the next day he played at Lincoln Center to a sold out show where people paid over $100 a seat.
Right. I heard that. And that's such a great example.
Right?
Exactly in line with this. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, it's the music, right? And it's like in the presentation and the context, it's like valued and it's meaningful and people got dressed and they went, they had to make that effort. And so when you were selling that story, I was like, it's like the guy in the subway.
Yes, exactly. So the context around what we choose to share and when is so important because it primes us for how we experience that thing.
I love that. This has been so amazing. I mean, literally, I think this is when you rewind, listen, and take notes. So after the gym, after you're done with your little commute, you should come back and listen to this episode multiple times. And you should also check out in the show notes. You can get more Amber all the time at her podcast, Women's Dating and Confidence Podcast, where I know she drops lots of amazing gems like this. And I'm so happy that we got to meet and share stories about our lingerie.
Yes, me too. Thank you so much for having me. I mean, people usually bring up this topic a little bit on interviews, but it's been so great to really dive into it. And I think it's so important to share this perspective with women. So thank you so much for having me on.
Absolutely. Ladies, and by the way, check your underwear drawer and life check yourself, thong or not. We'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.
Hey, thanks for tuning into today's show. So if being in an intimate relationship in which you feel 100% seen, heard, and accepted by a high caliber man is a priority for you right now, and you're interested in seeing if you're a fit for working with me and my team at Dating with Dignity, here's what I want you to do. Just head over to DWD VIP, that's D as in dating, W, D as in dating, VIP.com, and book a call to speak with my team. We'll get on the phone with you for about 60 minutes and you'll get crystal clear on what's stopping you from finding true love right now. We'll also take a look at what you want to create, what you want your whole life to look like when you're able to finally be fully expressed as a woman in a healthy relationship with an incredible guy. And if we can help you get from where you are right now to where you want to be, we will show you the fastest path possible that makes sense for you to do that. We help smart, successful women all over the world solve this one missing piece in their life so they can finally have it all. So to see if we can help you do the same thing, head over to DWDVIP.com. I'm Marni Batista, and let's talk soon.